Welcome to the second episode of Water Tech Talk, brought to you by Canopus Water Technologies. On today's episode, we have Dan Grace, the owner of Capital Well, based out in New Hampshire.
Welcome to Water Tech Talk, your dive into water treatment business and technology.
You want to just dive right into it, and you can start by telling us a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to make the leap and acquire Capital Well.
All right, let's go. It started a long time ago, 22 years ago now, actually. I had done my own thing for a long time. I worked with another company when I was younger, but I started my own thing when I was really young. I liked working for myself. I kind of made my own rules. I've never been a good rule follower, better maker. So it kind of stands to reason that I'd want to own something. And my best buddies in high school, they were like brothers of mine. Their whole family was really tight to me. I actually started the company in 1986. They created Capital Well, and really the credit goes to them. You know, we took over something that was already created, which was awesome. We had a phenomenal foundation to build off of, which really guided us and helped us propel to where we're at now. I don't know if we could have done it grassroots like they had accomplished, through the 80s, made it through the late 80s. And they kind of put everything on the line to start their own well drilling company. And we watched them and followed them all along. And I jumped in here and there, but it wasn't until I graduated high school that they needed help and decided to make the jump into a more full-time as opposed to seasonal work that I was doing prior, and jumped in full-time, with the premise to learn and do the best I can, like anything you do, right? If it's worth doing right, and take pride in it. And luckily I was raised with that mentality, and they were too. And they didn't really tolerate a whole lot of nonsense. We didn't have special treatment at all. We were one of the guys out in the field, and we had to grind. It's when the sun's out, you got to go. And it was always instilled in us, you can't make that day up, right? Once the sun sets, the day's over. You can't make it up. There's no making it up tomorrow. There's not enough hours in the day or season to get it all done. So they ingrained in us, taking pride and doing the right thing, whatever that may be. It wasn't money that was the objective. It was doing the right thing, and the money will come with doing the right thing and believing in what you do. So started working from the ground up, and I was hired as a helper and learned the trade and became a pump technician, did technical work, diagnosing dead pumps, out of water calls, plumbing, wiring. It's really a niche industry that encompasses so many fun things, to learn how to plumb, to learn how to wire, to learn water chemistry, to learn how to put a hole in the planet in a day's time. It's pretty neat. And we have access to great equipment. So with the foundation being built, I think it was probably 6 or 7 years into it. Well, 3 years into it, I like to talk, and I'm passionate about what I do, and that kind of caught on. So I moved into project management and sales per se, but it was more project management. It wasn't, pushing something that somebody didn't need. It's water, right? You got to have it, so there's a need. So it was more or less explaining why Capital Well, right? Like why Capital and not the other guy. And there's other companies in there in the industry that are certainly qualified. We just felt that we did it better. So presenting that to customers and explaining the things that we did different and better was awesome. I mean, that's where I flew. I spent 14 years on the road doing project management and sales and really growing the market share of the company, going after every contractor I could find. And in downtime 2008 era it hit hard. There wasn't new constructions to be had, so we had to diversify, and we diversified into geothermal heating and cooling. And I jumped in with both feet on that and found the HVAC contractors that were doing the installs. They needed ground source, which we had the drill rigs to do. And that carried us really through the recession of 2008, 9, 10, all the way up until we're still doing it to this day. So yeah, innovating and changing the way it was done and really revolutionizing geothermal in New Hampshire, was a fun ride. So with my passion towards the company, I was fortunate to get the opportunity to purchase the company out with the founder's sons. We're all partners, and they're incredible. Partnership in business can be tricky, especially when moving this much stuff and having this much equipment. But we've been able to sustain it for a long time and keep it cordial. I was just fortunate to yeah, get the opportunity. And that was I want to say 10 years ago. And, luck be it on our side. The tutelage that we had growing up helped us carry it through. And we more than 2.5 times the gross sales of the company, and, expanded quite a bit. And it's been a fun ride, so it's
Sounds like it.
exciting.
Yeah, it sounds like. I mean, considering the fact that it was, 20 years ago since you got started with Capital Well, if I did the math there right, how do you think the core mission of Capital Well has evolved since inception, and if there's any different products and services that Capital Well offers now maybe that I didn't before?
Yeah, it's a great question, because we've hit several crossroads. And a matter of fact, one of the founders, I remember hearing this discussion, you hit a certain crossroad and it's time to make a decision. And that was when they started the company, there was well drillers and there was pump installers. So you have a hole in the planet that hits water, and then you got to get the water out of there and into the house, right? So there was a lot of pump installers, aka plumbers, that were doing the pump work, but they didn't own a drill rig. So they would hire Capital Well to drill the well. Capital Well would leave with the drill rig, go drill another well, and they would take the pump work, which essentially is the gravy work. You don't have to own $1 million piece of machinery to put a pump in like we do to put a well in. And after so much time, Terry and Mike, the founders, realized like there's a lot of money in that, and we can do that too. And some people thought they were crazy because they were cutting their nose off to spite their face. They said, all your referrals come from the plumbers and the pump installers. You're not going to get any work if you're going to take all of it. You're going to lose those contacts. Yeah. But they said, this is what we need to do. And they did it. And they became a pump and well company. Same crossroad appeared when water filtration, water treatment became more prevalent in the state. We should start doing this water filtration stuff. Another crossroad, hit that, took it, diversified, and, the water treatment end of things carries the company through the winter when we're used to be slower. So these diversifications, we've seen them do. And I mean, we recently just made one with lawn sprinklers and irrigation, another company that benefits the rest of our company. We're already involved with the water. We're already involved with the distribution of the water, the pumping systems. We're familiar with all of that protocol. So why not expand that into irrigating lawns and lawn sprinklers? So fortunately, we've derived a division with a great crew, a 20-year experienced installer that had his own business and just didn't want to handle that. We already have the infrastructure to handle the phone calls, the dispatch. We have the capital to buy the equipment. So we essentially started with I don't want to say a blank checkbook, but, brought this guy on and said, what do we got to do? What do we need? Yeah. And purchased the equipment, hit the ground running last fall, and acquired a lot of new customers. The guys have been out doing like 12-hour days. My partner's been out, my business partner, that usually is in the office handling a lot of the management and ordering of materials, has jumped in with them, and he's been putting 12-hour days in the field with these guys to better understand the installation process. Because, we have found that we want to be able to know everything that's going on in the company and be able to handle whatever's going on in the company. So if everyone walked out tomorrow, we could still continue to operate, not held hostage by one person that knows the install, and we're sitting on a couple $100,000 of equipment that we don't know how to operate or install. But it takes a lot of discipline to get up and get out in the field and put your 12 hours a day in with these guys out in the field to understand how the value is tremendous. So, and all of my partners, all of us will jump in and jump in the field as quick as anything, as soon as they need it, which is nice to know. And the guys in the field appreciate that as well. But essentially the core values of the company have remained the same, man. We buy the best parts we can get our hands on. We're always looking for new innovative things. We've failed a few times, we've tried some things, and, I call it failure or finding a way not to do something. We climbed on with a few products that didn't end up working out for us, and you move on, you pivot, and you go on. So using the same kind of risk versus reward, looking at the inherent risk of whatever that decision may be, and sometimes it's worth the risk and it works out, and sometimes it doesn't, but it's never big enough to bury us. It's a learning experience, and we move on to something else. But we learned a lot of that through the previous owners and founders of the company, and we've continued that through, especially with the camaraderie with our employment and our employees, and treating our employees with respect, and creating a really nice culture, to show up to work too. Everyone's getting along, and we have an open door policy, so we can we can invite them in and get their feedback right away and make adjustments if it makes sense, or explain why we can't make that adjustment and squash it right there.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like a big part of your evolution has been talent or people, to make it simple, and also staying on top of the latest innovations and equipments that can help you guys serve your customers better. So, I mean, a good way to, or a good transition question is, obviously you were a really early supporter of Canopus, as Suhail told me. For those that are not familiar, Suhail is the founder and CEO of Canopus here. But that obviously suggests that you're always on the lookout for new technologies and innovations. So what are some of the other things you do to stay current with new technologies and regulatory changes?
Multi-part. I mean, going back to being an early supporter, it was so early that Sahul and I went to have lunch, and essentially he grilled me on what we'd like to see in a UV light. I swear it started on a napkin, and a year later he came back with a full-blown business, manufacturing, graphic design, cut sheets. I was blown away. He's like, let me show you what I've done with this thing. So blown away by it. And he was almost ahead of his time, right? Like, you have like the most technologically advanced UV system, and it's really great. And the market needed something. That market needed innovation. I mean, they're using old mercury bulbs and that heat up the water. I could go on and on. But so that's a really nice innovation. The other stuff we kind of stay on is really what is current with this technology. We have variable speed drive systems, so constant pressure well pump systems. For years, a well pump would fill a pressure tank in a basement, and the pump would spin one speed, 3,450 RPMs. It would deliver X amount of water. If it was a 5 gallon per minute pump, it's going to give you 5 gallons per minute. The well could be making 100, but you're going to get 5 gallons per minute, or 7 or 10, whatever size pump the installer decided to put in. And it fills a pressure tank in the basement. The pressure tank fluctuates from 40 up to 60 PSI. And then you have a reserve of water in this tank that, as you use it in the house, it decreases down to 40. It's never going to speed up or expand beyond that. Variable speed technology took it and put cruise control on the water to maintain a constant, steady water pressure. And we're like, who doesn't like good water pressure, right? So years and years and years ago, we had connected with a company, Grundfos, that had a variable speed pump system, and we were kind of one of the first in the Northeast to apply it. And we're a first on a lot of things, and that was one that stuck, and we used them for years. We've since changed to a different manufacturer, but same technology, same idea. Variable speed technology is everywhere. It's in HVAC systems. It's modulating, so you're using less electricity, less amperage on startup. That was a big one. We failed on a few. Like I said, it was the water treatment product that we went all in on. That was going to revolutionize water filtration. Took our whole crew out to Michigan to invest in this thing. We were all in, and that didn't work out for Northeast Water, unfortunately. If it was as good as it was sold as, it would have changed things. And we took the risk on that one, and it didn't work out for us. So there's certain things like that. But, essentially that, and, the equipment that we buy, the drill rigs that we buy, we're running PTO drive rigs that only have one motor as opposed to the two. They were kind of a proprietary rig a couple of years ago, and we've taken our lumps on those. We've gone through the growing pains with that company, but sticking with them and keeping continuity within the company to keep the same manufacturer, so we can move guys. If somebody's out sick or hurt, we can put one of the other guys on that machine, and they know how to operate it, as opposed to having three different variations of machine. They're very technical. So keeping continuity, which, believe it or not, is kind of innovative in a way, because you can piecemeal a lot of things together, finding the best deal. But we decided to stay with what we had and go through the growing pains with them. And we've done that with several manufacturers to just stay ahead of the curve. And we rely on our suppliers. We have an awesome supplier system out there that operates, to find us the best products, and they present them to us and want to bring them to the table so that we can stay ahead of the competition.
That's very fair. That's very fair. That's a couple different ways there of staying on top of the latest innovations. Really, and apologies if I'm going a little fast here.
Nah.
But I'm trying to make sure I get through these questions here. I guess a good segue would be to cover The fact that most people obviously believe that our tap water is perfect, but they also question the need for treatment, obviously. So I'd like to hear your thoughts, Dan, on that exact idea and what are some common misconceptions that people have about water and water quality treatment.
Absolutely. This is a fun topic because it covers 100%. It's not just well water people. It's your community water system people, city water people, everybody that has water. Where is it coming from, right? We take this naive approach to, I turn the faucet on, water comes out. It must be good. It's clear. It's good, right? And it's like, if they don't think that way, I hear a lot of people that I don't want to know what's in my water because then I'll have to fix it. Or I just don't want to know. Excuse me. Ignorance is not bliss when it comes to water. It is with several things, but with water, it's one of those real big pushes. I mean, we've made so many pushes towards the city water market to try to educate folks in. It's not just clarity, but it's the invisible stuff. Arsenic in New Hampshire is really prevalent. So we deal with pretty much all of New Hampshire. From the Canadian border, we have 3 locations, one up north, one in the middle, one down south here. We find arsenic all over the place. There's a map on the state website that indicates some of the hot zones that they've identified as well. But, arsenic levels used to be 50 parts per billion. They dropped it to 10 parts per billion after identifying the adverse effects of arsenic in relation with cancer. They dropped it to 10 and have since cut that in half again after recent studies show that at 10 parts per billion, 1 in 600 people or 1 in 300 people were getting cancer. And even cutting it in half isn't exponentially better. It's really 1-to-1. It's 1 in 600 now. Still terrible odds. That's at 5 parts per billion. It's really small. So if you haven't tested your water in the last, and that just happened 2 years ago in July that they cut the level down, and folks test their water once, they think it's great. It's good. I tested it 20 years ago. There was nothing in it. Well, that's just a snapshot of the water. And whether it's city water or whether it's well water, it's going to change. It's going to change with the seasons. It's going to change with the years. There's more contaminants. We had a big thing with MTBE gas additive through the 90s that impacted a lot of groundwater in the state. Recent studies showing that uranium, New Hampshire's 50% or 47% higher risk of bladder and stomach cancer than any other state in the union. Yeah, and so they're relating a lot of that to these invisible things such as arsenic, radon, uranium, stuff you can't see in the water, stuff that's not going to stain your toilet bowl orange or, green in the sinks. It's invisible and you're consuming it. And if you don't filter it, you're gonna filter it, and it's not just humans, it's pets, even small, right? So, if you love your dog, you should test your water. And it's been a big push to really do a complete comprehensive water test. And again, where we've innovated is adding a full-time water testing employee that is just water testing. They have a vehicle, they drive around, they collect these water samples, get them to an independent lab, get the results done, get them back to the customer within a week typically, and then can make recommendations. They can translate the list. You get a water test, it'd be like me getting a blood test. I don't know what that means. It might as well be in French. I don't speak that, but I do speak water, and we do, and we can explain what the levels are. What a UGL is, a ppm, a ppb, all these things, and then allocate a project manager to make recommendations to fix it. The good news is we can fix a lot of what's going on in the ground, almost everything. We can fix it with water filtration and water treatment. And yes, we sell it, we make money on it. That's how we stay in business, but it's also educating the public. And here's the facts, right? It's like, here's the facts. We didn't do these studies. These are not biased. These are studies done. Here's what's in your water at these levels. You can make the decision on whether or not you want to help yourself or not. We offer the solution if you want to take it, and we offer the best solutions we can get our hands on, and then we follow it up, and we stay on these solutions. It's not just sell it and run. It's sell it, stay in the system. We're going to remind you in a year that it's time to do your annual maintenance. We're also going to resample your water. And by retesting your water every year, we can kind of track the changes and see if anything is identified, and then tweak the water treatment system to stay as efficient as possible, because that's really important. You don't want to be backwashing a water filter that uses a bunch of water and dumping out into the septic or dry well, or if you have a water softening application to take calcium and hardness out, it's going through salt. And if it's properly managed, there's no adverse effects on the septic system or nature to get rid of that wastewater. It's when they're installed inappropriately and not calibrated appropriately that they're going to burn through tons of salt. So you're buying these 40, 50-pound bags of salt at the hardware store every week or every month and having to dump them in a bucket. A properly calibrated system in New Hampshire, we usually don't have to mess with it, but once a year, maybe twice a year to fill the tank, as opposed to every month or every week. So again, using innovative technology that counts the gallons used in the house as opposed to having it on a pre-cycle, just a backwash every day. It's actually monitoring your water usage and giving you the exact capacity that you need so that you don't overrun the filter, but you don't undershoot it either. That has been super beneficial and shows a real ROI with the investment of a proper water filter system. It just makes sense. So,
Perfect.
yeah. So I mean that's a big factor in what we do is trying to be innovative, even with the irrigation thing. By using a HydroWise box by Hunter, we're watching. It's connected to Wi-Fi, which is watching the weather. So your system sprinklers are only going to run when the weather permits. If it's going to rain outside, it shuts it off. It's not going to run it. If it's too cold, it's not going to run it. If it's too hot, it's not going to run it.
That's a no-brainer.
Saves 50 to 70% in water usage. So being innovative, being educational, doing things like this. I do several radio shows, and really it's just to get knowledge out there. I mean, knowledge is real power, and knowing what's in your water, where it's coming from, is critical. Everyone should know what is happening. When you've got this pipe coming into your house, so you're on city water, where are they coming from? It could be coming from a lake 10 miles away. It comes into a distribution center. They test it. There's consumer safety reports that are filed. You can look them up. They're public knowledge. But that's being tested at that source. It's not being tested at your house. You've got 2 miles of pipe that was installed, 100 years ago, 50 years ago, whatever that may be. That's collected some stuff that could be contaminant. And if it hasn't collected anything residual from the piping, you also are contending with chlorine, and chlorine saved a lot of lives. It disinfected water. It's cost effective. But it has adverse side effects, and anyone can Google it. Google health effects of chlorine on the human body and go through the 17 pages of studies showing, the dry skin and psoriasis that it's causing, the asthma from breathing it in as it off gases in the shower. You're breathing in this chlorine gas, right? And at high levels, chlorine gas is a weapon. There's other things that it reacts with, organic compounds creating trihalomethanes, which are a known carcinogen. These things aren't tested at your house. If you have a house on a town pipe, when was the last time anyone was in there to test your water? Never. Right. And they put the responsibility on the water precinct. And I'm not here to badmouth the water precinct because they're doing what they have to do to disinfect and provide safe water. But there's another step you should take as a homeowner and apply an appliance such as a UV light for bacterial disinfection. Make sure that there's no bacteria getting through your pipe because you won't know it. You won't know it until they test for it. And that could be 30 days, 40 days, 60 days after that you've been drinking bacteria water. Chlorine filters are simple. Carbon system called the One Filter that we installed does a whole house. It's cheap money to take out 100% of the chlorine that goes through the entire home, and that you can now essentially feel safe drinking your water. And also hydrating skin better, hair color. With the feedback we've gotten from women typically that dye their hair, it's like the color lasts twice or 3 times as long. They don't have dry hair. They don't need as many. It saved at least 3 people I know's children that had really dry skin to the point where it would burn them when they put lotion on. They'd, go through these fits, and it was like, what can we do? And we have installed a One Filter or city softener and with carbon and bam, cured.
Dan,
limited.
You actually beat me to it and covered how you educate your customers, because I have some notes here. I mean, you're doing everything from notifying your customers directly and actually tracking the changes for them so you can notify them directly if there's anything happening in their area. And then you're also using innovative technologies, like you mentioned, the Wi-Fi connector with the sprinkler system. But the most important part that I, at least that I heard you stress was just encouraging the customers to take initiative, right? Because of course we trust, local authorities, and of course our water is better than, let's say a lot of other places in the world, but things can happen, things can change, and ultimately you just have to be cognizant of testing your water and, making sure that you're staying on top of, your water quality. So my last question here to kind of wrap this up here is, as you look into the future, what are your goals for Capital Well, and what trends or innovations do you see shaping the water treatment industry in the coming years?
There's several, and there's one that nobody's been able to capture yet, and that is actually a saltless water softener. There's some that claim to have done it. It just isn't there yet, and that would be excellent to come up with something that doesn't have a byproduct of sodium. There's a lot of people working on it. There's some stuff out there. I see that being a big one. I mean, you guys doing LEDs on UV. I mean, that's massive. Massive. If anyone was familiar with the old school method, it's just changed the game completely. There's so many benefits to the LED install than what we've seen with the other stuff, and not just here, overseas. You're talking so much less electricity that solar panels now become feasible to put on. So if you're in an area where you don't necessarily have power, maybe we're talking sub-Saharan Africa, and disinfection is super important. The utilization of LED technology. I mean, look at every light that goes in now. So, I mean, I know we've revamped every one of ours at our shops to save electricity. So, disinfection, that has come a long way. Those are the two biggest that I see in the water filtration. A more efficient reverse osmosis. So reverse osmosis water treatment is super effective for just about everything, right? It's going to take out any type of particulate or heavy metal, almost, if it's in the right form. Arsenic it treats if it's been oxidized and turned into the right form. There's type 3 and there's type 5, pentavalent, trivalent arsenic. You want to make sure it's in the right form, and we can convert it using green sand to oxidize it and strip it out. So RO is effective for uranium and arsenic and PFOAs and PFCs, which is all the talk right now, especially in the state of New Hampshire, where we had the largest state contamination in history. I think it's going back now 5 or 6 years, but we're still dealing with it. And they're finding, the EPA just dropped the level recently this year to whatever it was, 4 parts per trillion. Is anything more than that is harmful. So with the technology and removing PFAS is a big one. And it's going to have to be. It's real, and it's not going away. It's a forever chemical. And that's what it's doing is just existing in our world, and we're going to have to learn how to contend it and take it out of the water. And that's, I think the technology and the advancements are going to go there. There's a lot of money to be had. So typically follow the money, you find the technology, and if anything comes from this, conversation, it's really just the wherewithal to test your water. Find out what you're working with. It's really affordable. I mean, we're talking a couple $100 for a complete comprehensive water test. That now you have peace of mind to find out either you have nothing or you do have something that may need to be addressed. And there's good companies out there, not just us. I mean, we definitely span the entire state and offer aggressive, finance options too, to make it a little more economical for people that can take a 0% for 12 months or even borrow up to 10 years at, I think, 7.99. We're keeping the interest rates down. We're buying them down to try to make it more affordable to get people to fix their water, but just being cognizant of what could be in the water, testing the water, and, just take responsibility for it. Just like any appliance you put in your house, if you're living in a home and you have an air quality machine, that's transferring the air for you, do that on your water, do that on the water. It's affordable and will really improve your life. It's the biggest message is knowing that you have clean, safe water is such a great peace of mind.
Dan, this has been very informative. I want to thank you so much for your time. I know that we intended for you to be here at the office, but hopefully the next episode that we record together, you can come by here and check us out. But before we go ahead and end this call, is there any closing thoughts that you'd like to add?
More or less, we're always accessible. either online or phone calls for conversations as well. I mean, me personally, if you say, hey, I heard this podcast with this guy, you can get to me. Capitalwell.com and click request a quote. You put any notes you want in there, and I see every one of them that comes through. So, if anybody wants to deal with any questions, whether you're in the state of New Hampshire or not, I'm happy to field them. But that's the big ones. Get the word out there and educate the public, and and maybe provide a service for somebody.
Absolutely. We'll definitely include your links and any other that you'd like to text me to include in the description here. But again, Dan, thank you so much for your time here. It's been very informative, and not just for learning more about Capital Well, but also where your head's at in terms of the innovations currently going on in the space and where you see the future going. But Dan, thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Anytime.